guys, and welcome to this week's reading vlog where we'll be locking in and reading only banned books for the span of the next 1 week because I figured it's high time I need like a change in my reading genres, in my reading pace, which is why let's just lock in, let's do that. And it's finally time because I have so many on my TBR that I'm just so excited to jump in, and that's what we're doing today. So now for context, I have chosen a few books for our potential TPR for this video that have been banned in the recent past, some even the present, but thankfully they aren't banned yet in my country, which means I still have access to reading them, which is why we're going to be getting to them as soon as we can in the span of this week, so I don't have FOMO if they actually end up getting banned, which is why those are the plans. Most of them are like high school grade reading material, stuff I didn't get around to then, which means I can do it now and kind of see what everyone's talking about, but at the same time, some are genuinely eye-catching in their plots and whatnot, and I know I just want to get to them unless they do end up getting banned again, which is why those are the plans basically. I do have 10 books picked out for this week's video, and I'm hoping we can at least make quite the decent progress through it because I do have like a bunch of college work I need to be getting done, which means we'll be audiobooking most of, if not all of them, and I'm really hoping we can get to all 10 in this video because again, I want to see what they're about. I've just been so intrigued by them for the longest time ever, which is why that's what we're doing today. I did already start book number 1. It is like a modern day classic at this point. Yesterday night when I was editing out the thumbnail for this week's video that needed to be posted, and I'm already halfway through, but it is a shorter length book just like most of the other ones, and I will be done in no time whatsoever, which is why I think might as well just go finish it out firstly, get everything else done, then I'll be back in to give you like a quick summary. But at the moment at least I'll be listening. I'm thinking I want to go ahead and clean up my room because I did have to go to college today. I was running late, which is why it's a big mess, and I also want to go ahead and finally do my nails because I've been saying I'll do it for the past few weeks at this point, which means we're finally locking in and doing all of it today. And so I definitely do need some audiobook going into tonight, and hopefully that will be enough. If it's not, we'll just start one more, and those are the plans essentially. I'll be spending my night reading banned books, and that's what I'm doing today. But yeah, I'm just gonna get into reading now, continue the book I did start yesterday night, see how it goes. I am dreading it because I'm not having the best experience at the moment. It is kind of rough, but hopefully things will get better, who knows. So I'm just gonna go get back at it, and I'll see you all in a little bit once I do have updates for the first book. But yeah, those are the plans, and that's it. Update on the banned books. Book 1 is officially done at this point because last night I stayed up, I did my nails. I think they turned out pretty cute, and I was kind of listening out to The Handmaid's Tale, and I'm done with it now because I finished it while I was doing my nails, started the next book as well. We'll get to that in a second, but this one I finished, so I figured it's update time because I haven't really spoken about it and I want to get into the next book now, which means we need to get the update for this one out of the way. But essentially, again, it feels so weird saying that I was doing my nails as like a mundane task in comparison to what this book is about, basically because we follow the United States of America but in like the distant future and whatnot, because it's kind of like a dystopian regime at this point. There was this like situation that slowly unfurled to the point where now the regime that controls it is essentially oppressive, and they kind of believe the rules wherein each woman needs to be owned by a man, so females in that society are like objects for men and whatnot. And because there's like a declining birth rate and stuff, the way the household system works in this world now, females have no rights. There's a commander of the house, then there's his wife who is the lady of the house, and then they have like a bunch of handmaids and whatnot. And the way it works is because birth rate is declining, all these handmaids have to like partake in this like repopulation program despite the fact that they might not want to and whatnot, because otherwise they have to end up working as an unwoman on the outer fields and whatnot. They are being shamed in society, they have not so great jobs and whatnot, and then after like the kids are born and whatnot, they're taken away and these women have to kind of live out their lives, continue the same cycle until they become old. And the way it works in this system is that if they give birth to a child and whatnot, they get some sort of like privileges in their opinions, but at this point it's just like basic necessities for us, but for them it's like a privilege that they are being granted to like distinguish between them and all the other women who cannot do it and whatnot. And so this book specifically, we follow the perspective of one of these handmaidens and her kind of story of life, kind of navigating through everything. And what I find interesting is that her name is Offred, but the way it works is again the system does not allow anyone a name. So it's just like a generic name that, if she's ever to be replaced, the woman who'd come in her place as well would be another offered, and then the cycle continues in the sense that if that woman were to be replaced or she dies or something happens, there'll be another offered. So it's like the line continues in a way that the original ones will be forgotten about, and that's the story. And I find it so interesting because, again, I was doing something like painting my nails while listening to this, and here we actually had the handmaiden offered that we were kind of following the perspective of, talk about how painting nails were basic like rights back in the day that they were allowed to do, but then as the social order changed and whatnot, now it's like strictly forbidden, they're not allowed to do it. And that just made me so grateful for what we already have at this day and age that we kind of take for granted but they don't really have. But also it's kind of scary watching the whole system unfurl and whatnot, because you definitely get to watch from her perspective how it's like a slow change, but once it starts up there's like no way to like revert back to where things were before, because the way it like pans out and whatnot, in the moment you believe it's good for you, but then once you finally end up at the very last spot in the whole destination, you figure out that it was a plan to wreck everything in the first place, and suddenly you cannot like pan back and whatnot, you don't have like contact with any of your loved ones, and that's the system. And I definitely found it like oppressive and anxiety spiking. But the thing is, this isn't my normal sort of read, and I definitely did not have the best time in that sense, because do not get me wrong, this is not like an entertainment factor book, but the kind of books I like reading, especially dystopian ones, they have like high stakes and things happening when you have like instant adrenaline spikes and whatnot, so there's like crazy like fast-paced plot twists happening. This one was more like a gradual showing of certain events that unfortunately can be related to modern day and era as well, and I found it kind of dark and depressing in that sense. So like I said, it isn't my typical read, but I still feel like it's very important to read this to educate yourself, and education is not always fun. It's important, but it's not always fun, which is why I didn't enjoy the book, but I definitely do see the hype behind it, and I would like to obviously continue this video and read more of these sort of books because they're very eye-opening on certain subjects. Again, it's really hard to go through with it because of how uncomfortable they are, but then again, education and literature are not supposed to be comfortable to put a point across, and this one in my opinion did that really well. One thing though, it is in the form of social commentary through her opinion and through her perspective, and I definitely do wish we got like more perspectives in the book talking about what was going on the outside, because there are definitely like allusions and references made to like the war and the things going on outside and how everyone else is suffering, but it's kind of like the narrow viewpoint of Offred specifically, which again shows you that if you kind of end up in that position, your knowledge and worldview is kind of limited. But I do wish we had more of that, because I definitely am curious to see where it would go, and I do wish we got more to the ending, because it's open-ended and when it's explained it does make sense towards the end. But I definitely do wish we had more, because I still want to see how it would end up. And overall, I did have a good time reading it, so I think I'm gonna give it like 3.5 stars. I'm not sure at the moment. It's just 3 is not bad rating in my book, at least. It definitely isn't. It's kind of lower on the scale of like 4 and 5 and whatnot, because again, I didn't have the best time reading this. I was uncomfortable at many bits. Some bits genuinely made my skin crawl. I felt weird kind of going through it, and again, that's the point. But at the same time, because of that, I don't feel like rating it anything higher, and if in my heart of hearts I know I don't want to rate something higher, I'll just rate it what I feel like. Free will, that's how it works, which is why here we are, this one's done. And I do believe there's a show out as well, so I can now go watch that and kind of get more anxiety, I guess, going along with it. But I guess that's the whole point as well. So that's something that's happening, and that's the first book we've finished. I did start our next book as my nails were drying, because I didn't have like anything downloaded to Kindle that I was in the mood for this video specifically, so I figured instead of like Kindle reading, trying to find a book, might as well just continue on with the next audiobook I've already picked off the TBR, and I managed to finish like 50% of it, which means now if I lock in, finish some of my work over the span of this evening, I will be able to finish the next book out as well. And it's not very long as well, it's really interesting too, so I think that's what I'll be doing right now. Maybe I'll update in a bit, who knows, but yeah, so far we're off to a great start, and let's just see how this video continues, because it's very important to read banned books anyway, and I'm really grateful I'm doing it this week. Okay guys, it's not much later because I kind of overestimated how much I had left on the next book and whatnot, which is why here we are. I'm done with it as well. This one, it's called Fahrenheit 454, and for context, the author, Ray Bradbury, I have read a couple of his like works back in high school and whatnot. It was part of like mandatory reading, so I definitely know his writing style and whatnot, and I definitely think that this is one of the best ones I've read by him, because this one, again, such an incredible read, and it does make sense why it's on the banned books list. But basically, I'm happy to have read this now. I knew I had it on my TBR for years at this point after having enjoyed his other works, so I'm happy I got to read this, because the ones I have read for school, they have been short stories, and while this isn't like a longer book and whatnot, it definitely is longer than a short story, so it was fun to indulge in. This one, the whole concept is Fahrenheit 454, the title, it kind of refers to the temperature, Fahrenheit 454, because that's how much you need to burn a book. And the way it works is that we follow a dystopian society set in the future. Now you can start to see kind of like a system and pattern emerging amongst these banned books, because somehow all of them end up on the same path. But this one specifically, we have this fireman that we're following in that world and whatnot, and the way it works is that in our present day and time, firemen, their job is to kind of put out fires and whatnot, but in these people's time, so in the dystopian world and whatnot, his job is to kind of burn illegal commodities, and here his job is to burn books, because books have knowledge that is forbidden, and so he doesn't really want, or his system and his kind of regime doesn't want that knowledge to be circulated amongst the masses and whatnot. So the way it works is that everyone's kind of indulging in their own separate private lives. They don't really care about what happened in the past, they just care about the present moment, and they're all kind of occupied with like television screens and everything else going around them. No one cares to pick up a book, to the point where now it becomes banned, and he's kind of ridding the empire of the books. Anyone he finds in the possession of like a book, his job is to go and burn it. Except one day he actually runs into his next door neighbor, whose family kind of works on like a thinking based system, so they kind of see through all of the mindless and original thoughts that everyone else is having, and they're kind of speaking about how the past was really revolutionary and how, you know, things were different back then. And suddenly he starts questioning his own regime and his own system, and he starts wondering why that's going on. And so there's like a break in the system, to the point where now he feels weird and uncomfortable living in the same house as his wife, who is also kind of involved in the mindless background noise that everyone else is in, to the point where one day he ends up defying the system and he steals a book instead of banning it, and suddenly now he's built a collection of all these stolen books. And it works in the sense that now, will he be caught? What's going to happen next? How is he going to, I guess, overthrow the system, or is he going to protest in some sort of order? And this one specifically, again, is very interesting, because can you imagine that there's a world where books are being, that's so weird to me as a reader. I cannot imagine books being burnt in any lifetime, but here it is, and I feel like it definitely is a good example of, again, a dystopian society and how scary it would be if things would happen in this sort of sense that way. Because as a book lover, I cannot fathom that. But again, the way it's written in the book, it's to make you uncomfortable and start questioning things, and I definitely do feel like that plotline was done really well. But I will say, I again wish this book was longer, so we got more towards the end of what actually would go down and whatnot, because I feel like this whole book was like built up to the point where not really much happens towards the end. But again, the social commentary in this was really good to read about, and while it isn't, again, my usual reading material, and while these sort of books do make sense for why they're being taught in high school, I still had like a good time reading it, and I'm still happy I read it off of my TBR. So another 3.5 stars. But it was a good 3.5 stars, and I definitely did enjoy the writing style a lot of this book, because for some reason, just the way he writes, if anyone's read the story All Summer in a Day by him, that's like my number one favorite, and it's been for a few years now, because I read that back in like 6th grade, I think, for school. It definitely does remind me kind of like the writing of that, but also in its own unique way, which was fun to kind of go along with, kind of reminisce about the old sort of stuff we used to read about. So I'm happy I got to this, and yeah, this again was a very important book to read, a really fun one too, surprisingly. So here we are, this is the next book done. I will start our next book, but I don't know how much time it'll take, how much longer, and so maybe I'll see you all tomorrow, maybe I'll see you tonight itself, who knows, but that's going to be the next update basically. I'm still here. I'm still working on college assignments, in case anyone's wondering what I'm doing the entire time as I'm listening to these books, but somehow finished the next one as well. And this one's really short. I finished it in no time whatsoever, because again, listening to the audiobook sped up, so don't expect a lot. I'm done with the next book, and it feels so insane because I haven't finished so many books in the span of like so quick, the recent past at least. So well, it feels weird saying it, but I'm done with the next one as well. And so update time. This one's called Lord of the Flies, and again, for like a quick little lore backstory, this was supposed to be for like this extra reading for class. I remember at least a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, back in high school again, but I did not end up getting to it because I feel like at that point no one was really doing it, and I wasn't into my reading phase yet. This was just a few months before I started reading again, for fun especially. And so back in those times, even though our high school teacher told us that, we should, and it would be recommended to kind of read it to understand what we were studying at that point, which I don't even remember, I did not end up doing it. And so again, it feels weird. It feels like I'm back in high school reading all these like books that we were being made to read back then, but out of my own free will this time, because I finished this and I'm happy I did, again based on her recommendation. Don't have a phone number to message her about it, but I did anyway, so I still feel proud of myself, even though it's like 3 years later at this point. This one specifically, again, is a dystopian concept and whatnot. I literally just retitled this video reading dystopian books for a week, and it would still fit, because in this one we follow this society wherein like World War is just beginning and whatnot, which again feels weird to talk about, feels weird to say out loud. But because that happens, there's this like plane that crashes into this like deserted island, and it's full of these like schoolboys that have no adults with them. So because they're on the island and because they have no way for signaling to get out of there, because everyone else is occupied in their own stuff because of the war, these boys, they start building their own society on that island. And the way it works is that at the beginning they have all this like freedom and free will to do whatever they want. So there's like a group who's like a choir, there's like another group who's like for hunting the pigs on the island so they have stuff to eat, and then there's like a leader, and there's like someone else kind of dictating other rules. And so far it looks like fun. They're all cohabitating, having a good time, living together, having like their dreams kind of fulfilled. Except as you keep moving on, again, this is like the Handmaid's Tale, when there's like a slow progression of events. You get to watch as this system collapses and suddenly it kind of descends into anarchy, wherein there's a couple of different people kind of fighting for leadership, and then the people who they're supposed to be leading over, they kind of get split into groups, and now these groups are fighting amongst themselves and whatnot for survival. And you kind of get to watch how these innocent kids, schoolboys, literally young children, they kind of lose their innocence as they start to like literally take the lives of others just to survive, just to like establish their reign. And it's a really scary book overall. But the reason that this kind of did not work for me, again, do not get me wrong, it does feel a lot like high school. It's because it kind of felt slow getting into it, the whole progression of events, and because they are schoolboys, and so in my head I was picturing like 12-year-olds and stuff, and there are definitely lower ages mentioned in the book. It feels weird that 12-year-olds would do this, but then again, you don't know what desperation would drive a person to do, which is why this is again another 3.5 star read. It was a good, impactful one. It's definitely important to read and kind of understand and whatnot. Education is again not supposed to be comfortable, but at the same time, it isn't in my usual roster of genres that I'd pick up, which is why I don't think I really enjoyed it as much as I'd enjoy a romance, and that's just personal preference. But it's still really important to read as well, and I'm happy I got to it now. And yeah, I'm happy I still ended up reading it, and I'm still happy that my English teacher's recommendation came in handy all these years down the line, because some of the things happening in the book are scary, but they're important to know by each person, because this is what dystopia looks like. And I don't know, it's just anxiety introducing. Here we are anyway. This is the next book I've finished. At this point, I don't think I'll be doing any more reading for the day, simply because if I overload my brain with too many books in a day, I feel like I might forget the plot in the long run. But also, if I'm overloading as well, I may not start to enjoy the books and start to devote myself fully the way I fully can, which is why I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna go have some dinner, maybe come back later in the night, just listen to some music to like unwind and chill as I'm completing my assignments and whatnot, and remind myself that I don't live in those sort of worlds yet, and be thankful and grateful for what I have at the moment. But then I'll be back tomorrow with our next book, whatever I end up picking up, and hopefully again it doesn't have me shaking the way these have me shaking with like fear and whatnot, but at the same time that's literally the job, so we'll just have to see what I end up doing. But those are the plans for tonight. I'll go for my dinner break and whatnot, and see you all directly tomorrow now once I pick up the next book. But that was the update basically. Again, so happy I'm reading all of these books that I was supposed to read in high school and I never got to. And so yeah, I do feel a lot younger reading it, but at the same time I'm having a good time, and I do wish I definitely got to them back in the day, because then we could have had like dissections and shit with the teachers and kind of gone through deeper meanings, because there are themes in this that can be explored into depth. But at the same time, I'm still happy I read this on my own time. That's still an accomplishment itself, and I'm happy I can do that for me. So here we are, moving on. See you all in a bit, and bye. Okay, update time. It's now the next day. It literally took me the entire day to get through the next book, so that's just like a testament to say that if I try and if the books are really good, I can finish 3 books in a day, like yesterday. And if it's not, it's like today, wherein it takes me the whole day to get through with a single book, and then I'm by the end of it in a slump because I hated it so much. And so here we are. This one's called Lolita, and personally, while it does make sense, the book and whatnot, the story behind it, I simply don't think I needed to have ever read this in my life because I don't need to empathize, especially with a pedophile. And so that's basically the plot, and here we are. I hate it every second, so let's break it down. Basically, in this we follow Humbert, and he's like a much older man, and this thing happens wherein right off the bat he knows he's like attracted to like younger girls and stuff, but one day he actually ends up kind of running into his landlady's daughter, and he starts realizing that, oh, he's got like feelings for her in the physical sort. This is so weird to speak about, but she's 12 years old. He's easily, I don't know what his age is because I don't think it was said in the book, but it's easily between like 40s to 60s, that range. And so that's already disgusting and gross because she's 12, alright? Even if she wasn't 12, she's still a minor, and that's just not how it works. But essentially, because now he knows he needs like Lolita in his life to just like be close to her, use her, whatever. Her name is literally Dolores, but then he's changed it to Lolita in his head because for him, she's everything. And so he ends up marrying the landlady just to get close to her daughter Lolita. And the way it works is that now, you know, he's spending all this time with her, he's basically grooming her. And it's almost like a glorification, almost like a romanticism of what he's doing, and you're supposed to empathize with him, but that's just disgusting. These sort of people, genuinely, the way he was, the thoughts he was having, uncomfortable to read about. I had the worst experience ever. Please skin him alive. I wish towards the end we got more just to figure out what sort of punishment he gets, because truly, why are we reading books like this? It does make sense, again, the literature, but for me personally, again, hate it every second. I just cannot find it in my books to feel sympathy for someone like that. She is someone's baby. She is a little child. And just the way he was thinking and the things he was doing, I don't know, you were supposed to find him not a villain. You're supposed to find him almost like a misunderstood hero, but that's just not how it works. I'm so sorry. It's just pissing me off the more I think about it. But yeah, I hated it so much. I mean, it's a good testament that fiction is getting me riled up enough to like speak my own thoughts out loud. But at the same time, I can't. I'm so sorry. And I know it's supposed to be like a study of the perversion of human mind and whatnot, but for me personally, that just didn't work. I cannot help it. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I know I'm losing like the complete meaning of the book. I know I'm not like supposed to get it the way other people get it, but personally, for me, I'm sorry. I just cannot be in the perspective of a character who behaves this sort of way and thinks it's acceptable in society and whatnot to like go against taboos, and he justifies it and rationalizes it in his head, because that's just, again, messed up. So I'm so sorry. This was every degree of literally glorification, messed up bullshit, and I can't stand for that. I'm so sorry. So this was 2 stars. I'm in a slump now again after having read this, so I don't know if I'm picking anything up today itself, because I cannot do it. I feel so gross and uncomfortable having read that book that I need a break now. But maybe I'll see you all directly tomorrow now for our next banned book. And all I'll say is, I know I was reading all these banned books to get like sort of like an education and viewpoint on light on other topics, but this one specifically, I didn't need the light on his perspective. And yeah, while I did go through with it, I don't think I needed to have read this, because I already hate sort of person, and having read it just cemented that further, but the whole experience of getting there was even worse. So here we are, done at this point. Moving on to the next book. I'll see you all, I guess, directly tomorrow now, because it's kind of late anyway, and we'll see if I end up getting to a couple more books. We'll see if this ends up slumping me out overall. But yeah, horrible experience. Again, so sorry. This might be someone's favorite classic, I don't really know, but for me it did not work, and that's basically the update. Next evening, and it's update time because I've gone ahead and finished the next book. This one's called Catcher in the Rye, and I'm gonna be so for real, I didn't have like a lot of expectations going in. This was like an underdog book because, again, the course I took in like high school and stuff, for my batch specifically, we were made to read like William Shakespeare, but I think either the batch before us or after us, there was a change in their syllabus and it was changed up and whatnot, and they weren't doing the same stuff they were teaching us and whatnot, and I do believe they were supposed to be reading this one, and so I barely escaped having read it in high school. And looking back, I knew I wanted to get to it at some point, I just didn't know when. So, you know, having seen this on the list, I figured, okay, it's finally time I get around to reading it and whatnot, because sometimes when you read a book in high school, when you're reading not out of pleasure but because you're forced to, it's not always fun, but once you do it on your own time and you actually pick up something you want to read, you kind of have a good time with it. And I figured maybe that'll be the case with me for this one. And so this was like an underdog read going in, and I'm so happy I got to it, because so far in this video I genuinely think this is like my favorite book I've read. Basically, in this one, we follow this guy called Holden, and the way it works is that I think he's been kicked out of 4 schools at this point. The latest one he's been kicked out of, it's around Christmas time that he gets expelled. And the thing is, his parents don't know that yet, and they believe he's coming back for Christmas vacation on Wednesday. So it's still a couple days before he has to get back home, but because he got expelled and because he doesn't really want them to find out because they'll be pissed and stuff, it's the 4th school. He ends up kind of spending the couple days leading up to Wednesday before he actually has to get back home, so he can kind of hide the secret a little longer from his parents. He ends up spending it around city, and the way it works again is that he's all alone in New York, and he's a teenager who's very much like gone out of the brink of his childhood and whatnot. So in this one, he's kind of like lonely, and he's trying to like find some sort of human connection, be it, you know, just the cab drivers he's with, or people in his past kind of ringing them up, or just random strangers in a bar. But just the way it works is that it kind of shows you that regardless of what he's trying, it's just not happening, because the city has been glamorized to be magical, but below it there's like a layer of loneliness. And all I'll say for this one is that I found this so nuanced, just the way he thinks, just the kind of character he is, so well rounded. It was a shorter read, but I don't know how the author still did it. Holden in my head is a fully fleshed out character, and just the kind of emotions he feels, it's like the whole human experience rounded up into one big book box. Does that make any sense? And it wasn't even big in the first place, because again, we have like a full circle moment coming wherein it's feeling literally everything under the spectrum, but then it still goes in a realistic sense. And I feel like the themes in this book are really explored really well, and this could make like a good book club read, because there's so much to like unpack and discuss here that maybe one day I'll go back and reread, because I just had the best time ever. It also shows you that when you were a kid, things were so different, because again, the glamour of being a child, the magic of being a child, you could literally just become friends with anyone you saw at the playground, maybe because you had the same boots, and maybe because of just like a random reason. But as you grow up and as you lose that childhood and slowly you're becoming a teenager, there's sort of this like isolation and alienation that comes into play, where now you're struggling for that human connection. And that also, the way it was explored, again, truly genius. I had such a good time, and yeah, I'm actually in a way happy that I didn't read this in high school, because now I feel like, because I read it on my own time, I got to like absorb the full experience out of it and have the best time ever. Because just the way he behaves, I wish I was joking, but so weird the way the author has done it. It feels like realistic, it feels relatable in some aspects, and you know, you're kind of rooting for him, but at the same time you're kind of rooting for the story to see how it ends up and what happens with his parents and what he ends up doing, because at this point he's only searching for like a meaning in life, and at the point where he is, he's a teenager. Definitely makes sense that his like one goal is that, but then also the human experience again is being lost at that certain stage, not really finding anything. And again, I just feel like it was a well portrayed theme in the book. Again, lots to discuss. I won't go very far into it because the book is not very long, so I don't want to like spoil things for y'all, but just know that if y'all haven't read this, in my opinion, this is one classic really worth reading. In a few years time, again, if I don't stop thinking about it, this could definitely be 5 stars if I go back and reread it, but for right now at least it's 4. Still very high up in comparison to what I rated the rest of the books, because while I did enjoy them, I didn't like enjoy them to the aspect where I knew I wanted to get back to them again someday. And this one I really did, because again, something about the book, it's just drawn me in right off the bat. And I know it's like a classic that sounds intimidating, but again, the way it's written and everything about it that hooks you in truly just doesn't feel like one. Had the best time ever reading it. And if y'all remember the book Boy Parts that I read a few years ago at this point, for some reason this is what I feel like Boy Parts was trying to achieve when it was speaking about the sort of themes I just discussed and whatnot. Not the slicing of boys and killing them part, but main character in that, I feel like this is what she was trying to explore, and this is the way it's done correctly in this book rather than in that, because I didn't enjoy that and I definitely enjoyed this, and for some reason they remind me of each other. But that's just a testament to say, again, if themes are well explored and done well, I will enjoy it, like in this one. So I'm done with it now. I did start our next book, but I'm again not done with that, so I'll go continue reading and I'll see y'all in a bit once that's done. But so far, again, right on the track, because I'm having fun again. And listen, there's nothing wrong with having fun while you're trying to educate yourself. That's also a good thing, which is why here we are. Moving on to the next book now. See y'all in a bit, and all I'll say is I can't stop raving about this one. You'll have to pick it up. Okay guys, and I'm done with the next book. I did not realize it was like a novella, so I figured I was only like a little bit into it, which is why I wouldn't speed through, but apparently it did because it was like under 100 pages, I think. And so I'm done with it at this point. It's definitely rushed through, definitely was fast paced. And so here we are for the next update. This one's called Of Mice and Men, and I do believe this is going to be the last one I read tonight before I go on a break, because sometimes if you read too many classics in a day, maybe you'll get slumped out. Maybe that's just me because it's not my usual genre of choosing. But yeah, after this I'll see you all directly tomorrow once I have like the next book picked out and read and whatnot. But until then, for this one specifically, this is by John Steinbeck, and I have a couple of his books on my TBR to get to, so I'm so happy I got to like read this and kind of get like a sampler almost for what is to come next, because I know I want to get to his books again. But this one specifically, again, lots of themes to unpack. Definitely a good book for like book club, because in this, don't want to tell you too much because it's under 100 pages. I don't really want to spoil it. For like a quick premise, we follow this one man called Georgie, and he's kind of like smaller, but he's got like a bigger brain and he's making all the ideas, so he's almost like the mastermind. But again, in like a very dull down sense, not that smart. He's just been thinking of the bigger picture and whatnot. And then on the other hand, we have this man called Lenny, and he's bigger, but he's got like the IQ of a child, so he basically follows in Georgie's footsteps and stuff, and he kind of sticks with him, figures that they're like a little family unit by themselves, and they like travel around, go again together to every like place and whatnot, work together, live together, just trying to seek employment and kind of find ways to make money so they can survive. Except because Georgie has all these like plans for them, he ends up making this one plan with Lenny wherein one day, after they save up enough, after having like worked so hard, they can basically live out the American dream, which is to like buy a plot of land and be their own bosses. Because if they are living on the land, they can kind of farm, so they can grow their own crops and be self-sustainable. They can look after their own animals and stuff, so be it again for food, be it for company, that's up to them, and they don't have to worry about stuff like money and falling in the whole system and whatnot. But now the way it works is that they need to save up for the land in the first place. And what just happened in the story as you start off is that they actually got kicked out of the town they were at because of some reason, can't tell you that, but Lenny did something, they got thrown out, and now they're looking for employment again. So they end up finding it on this like ranch on the outskirts of town, and again the cycle repeats wherein they're trying to make enough money to like go ahead, buy their own land, live out the American dream on that. Except while they're at the ranch, things go extremely wrong, because at the beginning at least they end up meeting someone else who also kind of buys into the idea of their dream and wants to join them on the whole escapade. So it shows the whole magic of the dream at the beginning, but things are not as easy as they seem, because while you can make a dream, it's definitely harder for like the worker in that sort of social status to be able to achieve it. And so things take a darker turn when things don't go as planned and whatnot, and suddenly, you know, there's something happening at the end of the book that you would not have guessed. There's other things going on, other themes. And all I'll say is overall I feel like this was a great read, but it's a great read after you read spoiler essays, or at least in my case, to understand what really happened. Because while it does flow by and it was fast paced and I got through it in no time, I did not understand the like deeper underlying message behind it until I went ahead and, you know, read scholarly like texts about it on Google and tried to understand what people are explaining to me, which is why this makes sense for like a high school book, so like teachers can come and explain to you the meanings behind it. But I feel like apart from that, because maybe I'm just dumb, maybe y'all got it, but I just didn't. I still think the message is good to kind of show you, again, the themes of like the social working class and what they can achieve. And maybe you might invest into a dream thinking, oh, you're closer to like getting it. And this is definitely like a darker way of perceiving things. But maybe that's the whole point of the system, to keep you working until you realize that the dream cannot be achieved in the first place. It's just a dream. And again, really interesting the way it's written. It's really quick as well. So I feel like the message is definitely portrayed across those 100 pages really fast. I didn't have the best time again going along with it. I needed to be explained the meanings before I actually understood it for myself, and then realized that, oh, this is like a book you could dissect and get more out of, especially when you're discussing with others. And also because I know this was written in different times, but there are slur words used for a specific character in this that again do not stand for. And I know the sort of thinking behind it in those times was different, but again, modern era cannot stand for it. So not my favorite read ever. I think I might give it like between 2 and 3 stars. I'm not sure at the moment because I didn't have the best time reading it, but I feel like the themes are really important. And again, reading is not supposed to be, or at least education is not supposed to be fun. Its job is to keep you informed and updated, which is why here we are. I'm done at this point anyway, so I'll go figure out my rating. But yeah, it wasn't the most enjoyable read per se in terms of like going along with the story and trying to like connect with the plot and characters. But I definitely do feel like there's a lot again that can be discussed because it is a nuanced book. And I don't know, maybe I was expecting something like our previous one because I genuinely connected to that and enjoyed it. Again, nothing wrong with this one specifically, it's just maybe my expectations were through the roof. But anyway, can't wait to read more of this man's books, because I know that if this in a short story itself was so deep and could go so much like higher into like portrayal of deeper messages and stuff, I definitely do believe he could do more in like a full-length book, and it's gonna happen someday. So I will get to it, and until then, this was our next book. And now I'll just go have dinner, take a quick break, but I'll see you all directly tomorrow because I again don't think I'm doing any more reading tonight, which is why that's it for today. But tomorrow's book is gonna be a really fun one. I've already got it picked out and I'm so excited to get to it. So until then, I'll see you all and bye. Update time, because it's now the next day. I'm done with the next book. I still have like 3 I think left on the original TBR for the video, so we have lots of catching up to do because today is Friday and I have to post this video on Sunday, so we'll just have to see how many more I can finish until then. But I have finished the next book out now, so it's update time for that specifically before I get back into reading. And for now, all I have to say is that this video is back on track because I'm enjoying it again. The ups and downs, so many plot twists and dynamites, but here we are anyway. The next one I've completed, it's called Perks of Being a Wallflower. I believe that's the exact title. And this one, I know I wanted to read it for like a while now, but the reason I picked it up is because I've really been inclined to, again, reading it and then getting to watch the movie because it has Emma Watson in it, I believe. And I haven't watched anything of her since like Harry Potter, where she was phenomenal, so I just knew that once I read the book I can finally go watch the adaptation. And I know that's like the wrong reason to be reading a book, but here we are anyway. I've read it at this point and I'm happy that I did because it was incredible. This one, in my opinion, deserves every little bit of hype that it gets, because while it is extremely hyped online, I feel like it's earned an aspect to what I read. This story, basically we follow Charlie, and he is the sort of person who is very sensitive and shy, and he kind of lives life on the outskirts. So he doesn't necessarily participate. He's like a wallflower in his own life, watching and observing everything go around him rather than taking part and almost like having it filter through him. That's the way it's described in the book. Except now he's actually starting his first year of high school and he's really scared. So we basically follow him in the form of like a bunch of letters he's written to this one friend, and we don't know who this friend is. We don't know anything about them. We just find out towards the end and whatnot that the whole reason he was writing is so he can be sort of like emotionally vulnerable, also be able to get things off his chest and kind of speak about things freely, because again, he's scared to go along with it but he cannot wait at the same time. And so basically it's kind of like slice of life. You're following his life throughout high school and stuff, and you know, you kind of watch him transition from being like a child into a teenager and slowly into a young adult, and all the kind of phases that comes with that and all these other things that he's exploring at that age, because there's like a bunch of, you know, new things getting introduced to him at that point, and you know how he's coping with it. You also get to watch his family throughout all of it, like a bunch of drama and scandals and all of that stuff, and we get to watch his new friend group that he's establishing and his new dynamic with that and everything else that comes with it. And overall, I'll say I had so much fun with this one. I found Charlie so sensitive, and just the way he would talk and kind of use his personal voice again felt really realistic. But not just that, I feel like it definitely got me emotional at some bits as well, because it's not expected, but just the way the story is written, it's hard hitting. And when there's callbacks to certain things Charlie references in the past, it just made me ache for him as a character, and I've kind of missed that feeling, because while I do enjoy reading sad books, it's very rare to come across one that you know will stick with you throughout the years, and this one I definitely feel like will. As I was reading now, this is my problem at the moment, my dilemma. It was a 5-star, but I'm not sure at the moment at least if it is a confirmed 5, because again, if I'm debating it, I'm not really sure, because my 5 stars are on a pedestal. So at the moment I will give it 4.5. I still had like an amazing, phenomenal time reading it, and I'm so happy I got to it. Can watch the movie now. And one thing I will say is that this kind of reminded me of Catcher in the Rye, which is so funny because that book actually gets mentioned in this book a few times. Our next read for this video, To Kill a Mockingbird, that also gets mentioned, so it kind of is fun to tie everything in together, see how the themes of that book and this one interlaps and stuff, and see how it all connects. Overall, now I'm starting to understand that maybe I'm enjoying these sort of books specifically more than the other ones of the video, because I'm sort of in the age range that falls for this. While I would technically qualify as more of like a new adult, later teenager on the side. I'm still a teenager, and there were still things discussed in this that I was able to relate to and kind of find myself seen in, which is why maybe I'm finding these more enjoyable to my own specific tastes at the moment. But again, do not get me wrong, the rest of the books in this video are still great. Maybe I'll come to appreciate them at a later time in my life when I'm a little older, but until then, what I did enjoy at the moment was this one a lot. I definitely do believe that this has topped Catcher in the Rye for me, so 4.5 stars. If I don't stop thinking about it, I will have to up it to 5, because again, such an incredible story. It was so moving and heartbreaking and warm all at once, and it felt like a hug, but also something I wish I got to a little sooner, because I feel like this definitely would have helped me while I was in high school myself, because lots of topics discussed in here that I feel like any high schooler would genuinely enjoy reading about. So if you are in high school as well, would highly recommend you pick up this one. And now that I am done, I don't know how I'm supposed to move on, because all I want to go back and do is read it and study the themes and messages and the small little lines that add up to something bigger in this, which make me believe that okay, this was like a masterpiece of a book. But I'm done at this point, so I will go pick up the next book and we'll have to see how that goes. But for now, I'm actually waiting on dinner to arrive, so until it does, little more reading will get in tonight, and we'll just have to see where I end up tomorrow. But hopefully, yeah, we do catch up on the TBR, because the next 3 books, I already told you which one the next one is, but the next 2 after that I've been waiting to read since the whole concept for this video was established, because I feel like they perfectly fit the dynamic, which is why here we are. Can't wait to get to those, and I'll see you all now in a little bit, hopefully, once I have my next update. But so far, video is back on track. I'm having a great, amazing time again, and it feels so nice. So that's it. Bye. Hi guys, and welcome to the final day of the challenge, because it's now Sunday, my last update since I've finished all the books that I needed to come speak to you about, which is why it's time to kind of discuss them before I have to go ahead and put this as the outro in the video, because then we're done with the vlog and it's being posted tonight, which is why here we are. Update time. I did go ahead and lock in all throughout the span of yesterday, Saturday, and then today specifically, trying to finish out the last 3 books we had left. And because I had only a little bit of To Kill a Mockingbird left at that point yesterday, I ended up finishing that and Animal Farm yesterday, and then today just now I finished 1984. All probably must reads on this entire list, which is why I knew I needed to finish them anyhow to kind of incorporate them in this vlog. And now that I'm done, I kind of needed to come and give an update, because the whole point of reading them was to kind of and discuss them with you all in this online book club of ours, which is why here we are. Firstly, starting off with To Kill a Mockingbird, I feel like this is a really important and impactful story, especially to be read by everyone in modern times, because here we follow this girl. Her name is Scout. It's kind of from the perspective of her and her older brother, but they're still children as they try to kind of navigate the racism in the South, especially at that point, because it's, I think, in the 1960s or something like that, the book, I'm not really sure, but in those times it was especially bad, and it actually got worse because at that specific point there's a black man who ends up getting accused of a crime that he did not commit, but he's unjustly accused anyway because of his race. And so their father, who is a lawyer, is actually defending him, and so their family is being, I guess, embroiled in the hate along with everyone else as well. So the kids kind of get like a first-hand perspective on how bad things are, and it kind of speaks about, again, a bunch of themes, but overall just the racism and the almost like separation between classes at that point. And all I'll say is it isn't my typical sort of read. It definitely takes a little bit to like set up and for you to actually catch wind of the story and start to understand how it's going, because it is slower to get into. But once you do, I feel like it's such like a good story overall. The message is great behind it. The whole comparison and stuff is also really interesting, because the title is To Kill a Mockingbird, and throughout this entire book we get the phrase it's a sin to kill a mockingbird. And if you think of it in comparison, it refers to how mockingbirds are these beautiful birds who like produce beautiful music and they don't harm anyone in any way. And so it's kind of like a sin to harm someone who hasn't hurt you. They're only existing as part of the beauty of nature. It's a direct reference to all the people who are being wronged in this, and I thought that was really beautiful. So overall, like I said, isn't my usual sort of read, but I feel like this sort of literature is again very important to read in this day and age, especially by everyone who would probably be interested, which is why I would recommend in case anyone's not read it yet, even though I feel like there's a vast majority of people who have read it and loved it as they should at this point. And so this is the first one I ended up finishing out in the span of the last couple of days. I will give this 3.5 though, because again, it takes a bit to get into it, and it isn't my usual sort of book, but I still had a good time reading it, and this was number 1. The next one I read was Animal Farm. I enjoyed this so much, and I feel like it's very obvious that if you have a banned books video, you need to have some sort of Orwell book in it, which is why I was actually saving his too for like the very end of the video, and I'm so happy I got to it now. This one specifically, we follow this like farm wherein the human owners are like overworking and mistreating the animals on it, and so one day these animals end up protesting, and in like a revolution they overthrow their human masters to the point where now they become the owners of the farm. And so you kind of watch them at the beginning celebrating their freedom and establishing all these ideals that are obviously very brave, but also trying to establish like the equality and justice and peace and freedom that they didn't have earlier, because at that point they were being almost exploited for their goods so it can be used by the humans rather than them themselves kind of benefiting off what they're producing. And so at this point now it's supposed to be all nice, it's supposed to be all harmonious and great, except again we have like sort of like an anarchy and leadership rising within, wherein there are these two pigs, one's called Snowball and one's called Napoleon, who are kind of fighting amongst themselves for leadership. Napoleon has his own army of dogs who's trying to kind of train the vast public, so the rest of the animals, to kind of step in line and fall behind his sort of ideology of thinking, and so that no one really questions the idea of the state and the party. But also we kind of follow a bunch of animals and their reaction to it, because at the beginning all animals are supposed to be equal, but then at some point you realize that that's not true. Some animals are more equal than the others, and I feel like again the message behind this book is incredible. But then it's even better when you actually realize that this book is supposed to be satire and a comparison to communist Russia, especially Stalinist Russia, because when you actually go ahead and sit down and look up like online essays and stuff trying to figure out which character in the book, so which animal compares to which character from real life, genuinely I feel like this did more than any history book could do for me, especially related to that time, because I feel like firstly you get to watch the whole system slowly unfurl to the point where at the beginning you think it's good for you, but then towards the end you wonder how you ended up there, similar to all the dystopian books we read at the beginning of the video, because whole system takes quite a while to establish, but once it's done you start to truly wonder how you ended up there and how you were used as a cog in the wheel of the system. And that I thought was explained really well in this book. Again, slow process, but the way it happens, truly it's overtaking in entirety once it's done. Also the comparison to actual communist Russia and all these specific people that we've learned about in like high school and stuff, the whole story behind how, you know, there's like a satire but it compares to things that may have actually happened and specific characters and stuff in the form of animals. I thought that was incredible, that was really genius. And I felt really bad for one specific character who was a horse called Boxer, because he's like a direct representation of the people, mass public in the system, who ended up getting crushed at the very end, and you know, his ending was tragic and sad. So overall I'll say I really enjoyed this book. It is a sad, darker read, but I had the best time reading it. Truly it was so fun watching the whole thing kind of come apart, and that's not a good way to describe it, that's just the way I find it, because again, not my usual type of read, but I enjoyed this more than I thought it would, because again, the sort of topics and themes it covers, we can definitely sit down, discuss and dissect it for hours. But also the whole message behind the thing, wherein, you know, there's like a certain enemy at some point and then it keeps changing back and forth on the basis of the leader, and the leaders also keep changing. I thought that was really incredible. And again, overall I think it's a great book, should be read by everyone if you can, and it's a very important recommendation again from my end, because it was just so incredible overall. I feel like the message of the book was well portrayed across, especially considering that it's a shorter one overall. And so 4 stars, had the best time ever. I wish he had like more books out, because I would love to go and binge them, especially considering the fact that I've read this and I've read 1984 at this point, so I'll go do my research, see if there's more. But truly such an incredible author overall when I read this. The final book for this video, which is a very obvious one right off the bat, it's 1984. At this point every banned books video I've seen is incomplete without that, which is why I was kind of saving it for the end of the video so we could actually lead up getting there. And at this point I'm not sure if Animal Farm or 1984 by this author is my favorite, because both are so incredible in terms of reads. But this one specifically, we follow this like sort of dystopian future in the perspective of this one man called Winston, and the way it works is that here we have this sort of like one party ideology which is controlled by the military leader called the Big Brother, and everyone sort of worships him, except no one really knows Why? Because you have like a system called the thought police who are making sure you don't rebel against him. You have like hate classes and propaganda being dispersed, but throughout it all, the way the system works is under the Big Brother rule and whatnot. All the people are actively working towards erasing the past, and once the past is erased and you have no proof of it, your memory is not reliable anymore to kind of stand true to what you remember, and suddenly the new documents that are being forged and stuff, that becomes the new past, and history is being rewritten in the favor of Big Brother, even though he may or may not be such a great person overall. So like I said, we follow Winston. He works in this sort of field wherein it's a very good testament to media censorship, this book, because he works in the system wherein he's trying to actively change details of the past. For example, if Big Brother gave a speech wherein he was historically inaccurate or something like that, or he predicted something in a war that maybe did not come true, they have to modify the speech to say that he predicted something correct, and suddenly the old copy gets thrown out. People start questioning their memory. The new copy is being introduced, and in the same way there are changes being made to the past to the point where people now start to wonder if the revolution before was actually bad and worse for their lives, because at this point Big Brother, who's in rule, his revolution and the sort of things that he's bringing in, it's better for the party because again, numbers are being modified, words are being adjusted, past is being controlled, and slowly you start to figure out that maybe his rule is not that great after all. Maybe it was better beforehand, but people don't know because the past is being modified and they're made to believe that the past was so bad that his rule is like better in comparison. And so Winston, the character in the whole midst of the storyline, we have him sort of starting to question the whole system and whatnot, because he doesn't want to be again a cogwheel in the entire process, but at the same time he doesn't know how to fight and revolt back, because you have the thought police who would literally execute anyone for thinking wrong and against the system. Throughout it all, he's trying to join this revolutionary party and sort of overtake and overthrow the system, kind of fight back internally. He has this love affair that's again not allowed in those times, but he's still doing it anyway, and so you're trying to figure out where the story is going to go and how the main protagonist is going to sort of like hopefully win in the end. And I feel like again, such a moving tale, so important to read, especially in modern times, because it's kind of scary, the whole premise. I definitely had anxiety at certain bits, but again, the media censorship and the way things are described in this book and just the way the author writes, I feel like this is one of the best pieces of literature I'll probably ever read in my lifetime, because just the way it's done, again, I cannot explain it to you unless you've read it yourself and then you're able to kind of relate to what I'm saying. But this one, whole thing with the hate being spread and your thoughts being governed and you kind of being put into boundaries and lines so you don't kind of go against the system, I thought that was genuinely incredible. It's sort of scary and the times are definitely dystopian, but that again makes me grateful that we're not living in a novel like this, because that's just scary. And also another thing about it is that it says 1984, the book, the title, and you know, you're supposed to believe that it's happening in 1984, but again, the lie runs so deep that you're not even sure if the date is 1984, because it could be anything at any point. Past is being actively erased to the point where you can't confirm, and so that's another way to kind of pick out another literary genius by George Orwell, which is why here we are. Again, had the best time reading this. This is like another like 4.5 stars. I have to go make up my mind because I literally just finished, but such a good read, very nerve-wracking at points. It was definitely terrifying to read about, but again, an important book, and so I'm happy I got to it in this vlog. And with that, we have now reached the end of this video. Would highly recommend every single one of these books that I read at this point in this video, maybe except Lolita, because I genuinely didn't like that, but everything else I feel like so important to read, especially in these times, which is why here we are. Do keep in mind though, and please give me some grace, that these are more of the popular banned books known across. There are definitely some like Slaughterhouse 5 and stuff that I didn't end up getting to in this vlog that I would like to do a part 2 of, because keep in mind I'm still slowly starting to explore this world and whatnot. I'm slowly starting to kind of familiarize myself with it, which is why let me know if y'all would like a part 2. But not just that, because I feel like I would like to read some of the lesser known ones as well. Since this was just me starting out, I'm giving myself the grace of having read the most popular ones. But regardless, yeah, I still think this was a fun video to record overall. Lots of great reads read throughout, and I feel like this was a very impactful reading week in my reading journey. So happy overall, which is why now we've reached the end of this video. If you guys had a fun time, definitely like, comment, share, subscribe. YouTube things, you know how to do them, and let me know if anyone would be interested in a part 2. But yeah, until then, now I'm probably just gonna go revert back to my usual reading content, because while I did have a good time reading this, I am kind of aching for a romance book at this point to feel good amongst all this dystopia that I've read. That's kind of freaked me out, which is why that's what I'll be doing in the near future at least. And so until I see you in the next vlog next week, probably reading a bunch of romances, that's about it, which is why stay safe, take care. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all now directly next week in whatever kind of video we record, which is why that's it, and bye.